Adding quality players off your fantasy football waiver wire is one of the keys to success, and that's why every week SI fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano joins us to identify and highlight some players that you're going to want to pick up. Fab's week 3 in the books, or almost there. Let's head into week 4. Who are you looking to add from the quarterback position?
How about Ryan Fitzpatrick? He was very good on Thursday night. The beard is better than the mustache, apparently. 24 fantasy points against the Jaguars, 24 plus points in 2 straight games. He is worth an add off the waiver wire. So is Nick Foles, who replaced Mitchell Trubisky and had 3 touchdowns in a very, very good performance against Atlanta. Trubisky out, Foles in. Kirk Cousins, he stunk last week, guys. I mean, let's not get things twisted, but he came back today, 3 touchdowns, nearly 20 fantasy points. He's got the Texans in week 4. Some other quarterbacks to target. If Joe Burrow's still out there, go get him week 4 against the Jaguars. Nick Mullins in 2 QB leagues worth a look. And so is Jeff Driscoll. You want a sleeper? He's got the Jets next week, and the Jets, well, they're just not very good. And then Justin Herbert also in 2 QB leagues. He plays the Bucs next week.
All right, a handful of passers there. How about the running backs? Fantasy managers always looking for that running back depth.
Yeah, Carlos Hyde is the first guy that comes to mind. Chris Carson got hurt at the end of the Cowboys-Seahawks game. By the way, Cowboys defense, I mean, just it's awful. But we're not sure how bad Carson is hurt. If it's a significant injury or he's going to miss time, Carlos Hyde will be a hot name off the waiver wire. Rex Burkhead looked tremendous. He was one of my Fab's 5 sleepers this past week, and boy, he was tremendous. 13 touches, 3 touchdowns, and nearly 35 fantasy points. And until James White comes back, Rex Burkhead has got to be owned across the board. Myles Gaskin had 27 touches against the Jaguars, almost 15 fantasy points in that game, played 46 snaps. Matt Breida, only 11, and Jordan Howard had 4. So Gaskin is the guy in Miami. Jeff Wilson Jr., Doc Roto and I talked about him on the podcast, said start him this week. Really good sleeper. 2 touchdowns, nearly 22 fantasy points against the Giants. Some other players to add. Devonta Freeman, I get it. He didn't do anything today. He's got to get his sea legs back, but he'll be the starter for the Giants sooner rather than later. And then Brian Hill, especially if Todd Gurley is your RB2 as a handcuff. He had a nice stat line as well this week.
All right, let's go over to wide receiver. Who are you looking at?
Justin Jefferson's probably going to be the hottest wide receiver added. Hey, Bill, what took them so long? Like 2 weeks, they didn't use this guy. They were using BC Johnson. Hello, this guy's tremendous. 9 targets, 7 catches, 175 yards, like he was back at LSU, over 30 fantasy points. He was just tremendous. He only had 5 catches on 6 targets in the first 2 games. Go get him. He'll face the Texans in week 4. Brandon Ayuk also with a very good game, 8 targets and 70 yards, had a rushing touchdown. Now, Deebo Samuel could be back in week 4, but Ayuk worth a look. T. Higgins, another rookie. John Ross was a healthy scratch. Why? Because they wanted to highlight Higgins. He had 2 touchdowns against the Eagles, so he's worth a look. Some other players. Cole Beasley, 100-yard game. Hunter Renfrow was tremendous for the Raiders. Andy Isabella got in the end zone a couple of times. Braxton Berrios, yeah, it's gotten that bad for the Jets. Greg Ward in Philadelphia. And then if Deontay Johnson's concussion causes him to miss any games, James Washington will have some value off the waiver wire.
All right, let's go over to tight ends where Mo Alley Cox had another good game. If you thought that was a one-week wonder, au contraire, Monfrere, what do you make of the Colts tight end?
Right, and Jack Doyle was not in the game plan at all. So maybe Mo Alley Cox just sort of emerged as a favorite for Phillip Rivers. 3 targets, but 3 catches and 50 yards and a touchdown. He's now had 14-plus fantasy points in 2 straight games. And let's go back to the future. Let's get into the DeLorean. Hit that sucker up, 88 miles per hour. Jimmy Graham. Oh, my goodness gracious. 10 targets, 6 catches, and 2 touchdowns. It was like he was playing for the Saints again. 24 fantasy points. He now has 3 touchdowns in his first 3 games. Like, I get it. It's Jimmy Graham. He's getting targeted, especially in the red zone. And you know what? The tight end position is very thin right now, so he is back on the radar. One other guy who didn't have a huge game today is Drew Sample, but he's got the Jaguars in week 4. That is a very good matchup. And typically, Burrow has liked to throw to his tight end. So Drew Sample worth an add in deeper leagues.
There are plenty of options to add off this week's waiver wire. We'll have plenty of these guys ranked on our weekly rankings. You can check those out by getting on SI Fantasy Plus. It's just $14.99 a month. Go to si.com/fantasy for more details. Thanks, Fabs.
You got it, man.